My husband knows that I am a very anxious driver, and I get angry when other people on the road are not following the rules.
Because they're doing it against you. They know that Kelly's on the road.
They cut me off specifically to make me mad.
Yeah. Or just because they don't like you.
Yes.
They don't like you. They know you. They've researched you.
Maybe they don't like my swagger wagon.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. And my husband says to me, maybe they just need to get off on the next exit because they need to use the restroom.
Maybe they didn't plan.
Oh, maybe they didn't plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that would be me, Mrs. Bond, when I cut you off because I don't need to be using the restroom.
But it's better for my soul to accept that reality that, okay, maybe they are going through something. Maybe they do need to get off or you know what?
Of something you just don't know.
I don't know.
You just don't know.
I don't know.
And you won't know.
And I won't.
And sometimes it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No.
But this is how we can kind of trick our anxious brain into accepting an alternate reality.
Anxiety and stress seem to be impacting students more than ever before. And as parents, educators, and school leaders, we're seeing it firsthand. At Trinity, we want to help our students not simply avoid hard things, but to grow in resilience and confidence in ways that can honor Christ as they navigate life's challenges. So, today we're having an honest conversation about anxiety, parenting, and raising resilient kids in an anxious world. Welcome to Different by Design. Thank you for joining us today on Different by Design. I'm your host, Matt Dixon, along with Trinity's founder and head of school, Liz Caddow. As well as today, we'll be talking with Kelly Bond. Kelly specifically spends her days here at Trinity as an educational therapist, among many other things, but really focuses her time in working one-on-one with students through academic challenges, but really as that comes many other challenges as well. One of those is going to be something that I think is a really important topic for us to talk about today, as we'll be talking about anxiety. An important topic. So Kelly, thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your expertise with us as we talk through this. So
wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Well, as I just said, obviously a very important topic, a very important conversation. I think one that parents and even for us as educators, we don't always talk about, and we probably should talk about a little bit more.
Yeah.
It has a stigma to it where if this is something that you or maybe your child is dealing with, and this topic of anxiety, we don't want to say that out loud. It feels very, I don't want to admit that maybe I also worry about stuff. Maybe I am anxious about stuff, or my child, because maybe then that makes me a bad parent, right? I mean, I think that can be
absolutely, or that maybe
part of it.
We don't have it all figured out already, right? A lot of times we come to school and we present really well, and people don't know always what's going on behind closed doors, right? What we're struggling with, what we're battling with. And sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable about those things.
Yeah. And I think even from the seat that I sit in, I know in preparing for this conversation, one specific thing that we were saying, Liz, I'm sure you've seen this over your time, 25 years at Trinity. Kelly, I know in what you do and even in what I do. I think the reason this was so important to talk about is it is becoming more prevalent. Whether that's real or not, it still is being talked about. And sadly, it's going younger and younger in students, that we hear young grammar school students using words like, I'm anxious, I have anxiety. And so that's where I knew for our school community and even surrounding areas, this was something worth talking about. So maybe let's just start there. Kelly, can you, from your perspective and from your understanding and research, why does it feel like anxiety has become such a major issue, even for kids today?
Right. I think that it is for many reasons. Prior to our big technology boom that we had, a lot of times people would become anxious or worried, right? And they didn't have a lot of information that they could download about what does that mean? Does that actually qualify as an actual problem in my life, a disorder? Do I need to see somebody? Or am I just experiencing anxious feelings, right, that I don't know how to tackle and problem solve? And so before we had technology, you would maybe wonder about this. You would talk about it with your friends and family, but I think that the access to a lot of content online tends to increase everybody's vocabulary around certain things where, kids are starting to use terminology that maybe I would hear in my clinical master's of social work program as we're talking about diagnostic tools that I am not wholly prepared to hear coming out of a 10-year-old's mouth, right? Yeah. The sheer access to information can be a blessing and a curse. And I think that a lot of times we want to know what's going on with our bodies and ourselves, right? We have this innate need to figure out, why am I the way that I am? Who has God made me and what's going on in my life?
Well, and some of the challenge with that is, and we all probably do it, we end up self-diagnosing.
Absolutely. I've had kids come into my office when I'm just getting to know them and they'll say, well, I think I have this or I think I have that. I'm like, well, have you seen a professional and have they told you any of this? And they go, no, I watched a video on TikTok. And
the great source of truth.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I have to have those conversations with kids where I like to liken it to the fact that, I get tired a lot. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I work full time. I'm a wife and I wear a lot of hats here at Trinity. So I'm busy and I'm exhausted a lot, right? But if I went to my doctor and I would start talking to him about how tired I am and how much I sleep, he would ask me for the frequency, the duration. He would ask me for my percentage of sleep per night or my number of hours of sleep per night, because that's data, right? And that gives him concrete
context,
context into my sleep patterns, right? To where I could say like, I'm so tired, I feel like I have narcolepsy, right? But do I actually have the criteria that would qualify me for a narcolepsy diagnosis? Absolutely not. I do not. But I feel tired. And so some of that is dramatized, right? Where we say, I feel so exhausted, right? And it's the same thing with anxious feelings, right? Where we can feel worry, we can feel nervous, we can feel anticipation. And sometimes when we don't have the right vocabulary and when we maybe are feeling our feelings at their height, that's when we can identify with feeling, oh, this is anxiety. I am having test anxiety. I'm having speaking anxiety. And those vocabulary words, I think, become too prevalent for our kids when really we need to sit them down and have a conversation about what are you feeling? Let's check in with your body.
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder, too, if words parents use also then get absorbed that maybe
Absolutely.
aren't the best words aren't the best for them to be absorbing.
Well, to be fair, even
Right.
like you said, Kelly, it's not just words maybe parents are using, but what they're seeing in media, what they're seeing on whether that's online or on TV or anything, because obviously these are things that drive a narrative for them. And maybe they feel better being able to label something,
Yes.
maybe putting a, little button on it, in the sense of,
Right.
I can understand it because I have a word for it.
Right.
And even at a young age, I think there are times where maybe they want to do that.
Right.
And so it is hard. And I think that's a good point. So from your perspective, then, if there's a lot of things that might not actually be anxiety, what actually is anxiety?
Good question. So when we're looking at the definition of anxiety, we're looking at it from a medical standpoint, right? If you're feeling your feelings, I encourage you to explore broadening your emotional vocabulary so that you can really articulate how you're feeling. If you have a medical diagnosis of anxiety, it means that you have an abnormal and overwhelming sense of apprehension and fear, which is often marked by physical signs within your body, right? And so this actually comes from our physiological makeup that God gave us, right? We have something in our brain called our amygdala, and some people call it the lizard brain, right? This is from times when we lived in the woods, right? Where we had to notice different patterns in our environment that were dangerous and be able to respond to them quickly. This is our fight or flight response, right? And so we get flushed, we get heart racing, sweaty. There's all of these symptoms that can come with anxiety when you are triggered into a fight or flight response. The problem is with our bodies is that nowadays our bodies see threats everywhere that are not there. We're not going to face a bear in the woods today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, most likely.
Hopefully.
I don't think so.
Right? The problem lies in the fact that like our brains start lying to us that everyday situations are actually life-threatening, dangerous situations to us. And this is where anxiety doesn't match the situation that we're experiencing. It is not life-threatening. It is not dire. This is an imbalance of that fight or flight response, that stress response to a perceived danger that is really maybe even just in our mind. It could be something that we can problem solve or something that can't be solved, right? And so this is where you can kind of look into anxiety a little bit more. Am I just having worrisome thoughts? Right? Is there something that I need to be worried about, right? This is also a benefit that God gave us, right? This instinct to recognize a problem, anticipate what could happen and try to plan for it. This is our ability to counteract danger. And so when we're looking at anxiety, we're looking at also, is what we're experiencing a realistic problem right now? You have to look at the level of severity. You have to look at whether or not the impact meets the threshold of your feelings for that problem.
So in that sense, it's what I hear you saying is obviously there is an actual clinical understanding of anxiety, but at the same time, not all anxiety, even as we understand it from a biblical perspective, is bad. Like there are parts of how God has designed us and created us where I should be worried about that thing. There's a healthy fear, if you will, of certain aspects. I know I always think of that in the context too of how C.S. Lewis in The Problem of Pain, he talks about this idea how pain also has a good purpose, right? There are parts of how God has designed us to go, that fire is too hot.
Yes.
Don't touch it. Like it will damage your body. But at the same time, that same fire can also provide warmth.
Yes.
Right. And there's like the right amount of different things that we can do. So sometimes it's easy for us to assume that when we hear words like anxiety, when we hear words like pain, it's always bad.
Right.
But what I hear you saying is, when we're talking about that, these are some God-given things.
To you that something's going on.
And how do we, in our roles here as a school with our children and even our families, and say in your particular role, how do you help, the student navigate that?
Right.
So that, hey, this is okay. And actually the feeling that you're having is a good feeling to have before you go present this, or maybe you're taking your test, or and it's okay
because it's a big deal,
and you're going to get to the other side of it, and then of course where's God and all of that with you.
Right. An important thing that we can do with our kids when they are experiencing high anxiety over something like tests, everyday homework, big projects that are coming up, having to speak publicly, all of these things create worry and fear in kids, right? And so what's important to do is, a lot of people think that spend time with your kids, talking with them to work them through these different, anxious feelings. But really, I also encourage parents to go back after the fact and have their kids rate themselves. If you were going to rate yourself prior, let's just say me coming into this room with these very amazing professional microphones, my level of anxiety walking in, right? My level of worrisome fear was probably a level 9, which is my body is in danger.
Bears are coming.
Bears are coming.
Yeah.
But now checking in, we've gotten started, right? And my blood pressure has gone down. Right? My breathing has evened out. I feel calm, right? So if I were to rate my level of anxious feelings now, I would probably rate it a level 4, right? And so it's important to check in with our kids after the fact, after they've tackled something really difficult. How do you feel now, right? Emphasizing the fact that they went through, right? They persevered, right? And they came out one alive. I love that we always say, you didn't die. Nobody died.
Yes, I
right?
always say that with my seniors.
I love it.
Even,
like
after
senior thesis, yeah.
Yes.
And no one, and they all know to say perished. We know, Mrs. Caddow, that's right, but you didn't.
Exactly.
Got it.
Is it hard in the meantime? Absolutely. Yes. I have worked with students with their senior thesis, and it is an anxiety-provoking experience, right? But it's not something we want to shy away from because we want to build tolerance to difficult feelings.
Yeah, that resilience.
Yes, absolutely. Because if we don't, and we kind of always cater to where we feel comfortable, protecting our peace and our comfort, we're never going to stretch and we're never going to grow.
Yeah.
Right. So it is a balance between stretching yourself outside of your comfort zone, acknowledging feelings that you're feeling, and then also putting it into a context of, am I safe? Can I do this? Am I confident? Am I capable?
Yes.
Right? After
and will it be okay?
Right.
And most of the time, it is.
It is.
Like
99%
of the time.
Well, it's interesting. What you say makes me think about how really a variety of areas of what we all go through and what we put our children through are anxiety-producing activities. Right. School in and of itself is an anxiety-producing activity. And for differing degrees and differing levels, for all of them. And I know, especially in educational circles or parenting circles, you hear the analogies of like the helicopter parent that hovers over everything that they're doing and never lets their child grow. Obviously, there's always balance to all of that. But I always think of the other picture that people give of the lawnmower parent or the snowblower parent. Oh. I think I first heard it as snowblower parent, but someone was explaining it to me. I'm like, we're in California. We don't have snow.
New analogy.
So maybe lawnmower, where they're just trying to pave the way for their child so that there are no bumps.
Right.
Everything has been cleared. Everything is out of the way. There are no bumps for them. It's going to be smooth sailing. But I think if we all take a step back and look at that, if we make it so that as educators or as parents, there are no bumps for our kids, nothing is hard and challenging for them, how are they going to be resilient when they're adults?
Exactly.
How are they going to handle? And we see this, and we all could talk about different generations or different upbringings or other things like that, where you just ask, are they resilient? Can they handle struggle? Because life is
struggle.
Yeah, it will come.
And also, turning ourselves towards Christ. And if we want to be like him, he struggled for us.
Absolutely.
And so the way of salvation, all of that is a struggle, which means how do we do these daily things in school, relationally?
Right.
One of the things that we'll experience too, especially for students, is how to help them navigate some of their relational anxiety.
Oh, wow.
Especially through junior high and high school.
Yeah.
And have those conversations like, it's going to be okay. Yeah, you do need to have the conversation.
Right.
You can work this out with your friend.
And you're going to do it face to face.
And you're going to do it face to face. Absolutely.
And
don't use a medium.
I know, and that is going to cause you angst. It's okay.
Right.
We can help you do that.
Totally.
But that they have to know how to do that, but then get to the other side to see like, oh, this is the journey. I'm going to have to do this continually.
Right. Absolutely.
As you guys look at it, I think that's a good point. What are some other ways that come to mind that for us as a school that we are maybe actually intentionally building in ways that we're helping students build this resilience rather than doing that idea of what I was just saying, where we're removing every challenge, right? Because obviously there is a balance. We're not trying to harm them. Like that is not the goal.
Right.
But at the same time, we're also not trying to make it so it's just smooth sailing, perfect, no bumps.
Right.
So
it should be a balance.
Yeah. So what are some other things that come to mind for you guys where that's just a normal part of school and actually we see kids grow and become resilient as a process, through that process?
Well, it's interesting. We definitely do that through, the peacemaking process or even in the sense of just working through relationships. Another way that we do that is by, even in high school, students are required to be on 2 seasons of high school sports.
Right.
Usually, often we'll take them out of their comfort zone
Absolutely.
Some, they get the experience of being on a team and trying to build relationship that way. And maybe for some of them, learning to grow in, oh, I'm maybe feel like a super stellar student, but this is out of my comfort zone here on the field, and that's okay. Those are good things, and we also do that in high school. Everyone is taking an instrumental or a vocal related to how we can grow and understand and find arts, but that for most students is quite uncomfortable, but it's an opportunity to grow and learn, and they do. Yeah. And they do.
Yeah. I think that there's some really amazing ways in which Trinity helps shape and form that perseverance. A lot of times the conversations that I have with parents are to hold them to the long plan, right? Where, yes, your child is experiencing a lot of fear, a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety. Here's what they're gaining from it, right? And the journey is worth it in the end, right? One thing that is hard for parents is to be on that journey with them, right? Because they don't want to see their kids struggle. They don't want to see their kids being miserable, which sometimes nobody does. But the whole thing is, this is at least what I tell my own kids in our household. Feelings are contagious, right? And so sometimes when our kids are feeling anxious, worried, frustrated, mad, disheartened, sad, all of these different feelings, those are contagious. We feel it right there with them, right? And sometimes our impulse is to distract, right? And to pivot away from those hard feelings because they don't feel good for us either, right? And so sometimes the best thing that we can do as parents is to just sit in those feelings with our kids, helping them grow tolerant to it. And if our first impulse is to want to fix it, to want to, console, take away the bad pressure that is causing our kids these tears or these feelings, we need to pause and we need to ask ourselves as parents and as the ones that are led by God to shape these kids into adulthood. Do we want our kids to have tolerance to difficult feelings and be able to come out of it in the end with logical thought, with a plan, and with confidence? Absolutely, we do, right? And so for a lot of parents, I think that it's hard to withstand those feelings. It's hard to sit in it with our kids and to trust that it's going to be okay.
We all want to be in some sense, have a sense of control over certain things. And we
think we do.
Yes. And we certainly don't like it when we feel bad because our kids are feeling bad.
Right.
And we feel sad and bad for them, and that makes us feel it. So it's, everyone has to learn how to navigate and sit in that. That's hard.
Yeah,
it is hard.
It reminds me how all of these feelings, as you're talking about, for ourselves and for our kids, for students, they are typically rooted in some form of truth, meaning like it's not completely out there of why they're feeling a certain way. And yet, God's word speaks to this, right? Even from the beginning, from the fall, in Genesis 3:1, when you have Satan who comes in and twists the truth. We know Satan is the master of lies, and really that's where I think anxiety gets to this root, where he loves for us as people, especially as Christ followers, to have the truth be twisted in such a way that it causes fear, anxiety, worry, all of that. Because remember, he comes in Genesis 3:1, and he comes to Eve and he asks this: did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? That's not what God said when we look back in context. He makes it worse. He twists it. That's rooted in truth and makes it sound worse than what it was. Because God gave one command. He said, you can eat anything, just not one tree.
Right.
And Satan twists that. And I think it started there, and it just is continuing to this day, where he wants for all of us to have that distortion of truth. And for us, that leads to fear and worry and anxiety, in thinking that those feelings are the most important thing about us, rather than reminding ourselves of what is true.
Well, and it reminds me of what you had mentioned earlier regarding, this particular generation too, turning towards social media or the various avenues
that's not true.
to find like, why am I feeling this way or this, as opposed to possibly being reminded of what God has to say to us in his word and his promises.
Yeah.
Be anxious for nothing, but in all things through prayer, supplication, and with thanksgiving.
Right.
Make your requests known to God. And how do we do that, help our kids do that in the midst of what is hard?
And the promise connected to that. And the peace
absolutely.
of God.
Yeah, and the peace of God.
Which surpasses all understanding. Meaning, like, it's not always going to make sense to us.
No.
But knowing it's not coming from us. But you know what I love when we think about that passage is right after it. It's that I always think of that phrase, we become what we behold. Mm-hmm. And in that, it's that Romans 12 idea of renewing our minds. What are we thinking about? Mm-hmm. And to your point, when we're talking about technology and the rise of that, when we look at especially kids and teenagers, of course, anxiety is on the rise, right? We've seen that even secular studies, if you've read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, we've seen how there's correlation to social media access and the rise of anxiety in students. Right. But in that passage, Liz, in Philippians 4, it ends with, in verse 8, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, lovely, commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, what does he say? Think about these things. Yeah. Meaning it's that same idea of what are we putting before our eyes, really our mind's eye, what is in front of us? And then to your point, kind of where we started, if you were a doctor or if you went to a doctor and you were getting data, or if you were kind of getting context and zooming out to go, no wonder I'm anxious.
Yeah.
Or no wonder my kid's anxious. Look at what look at what they're having to deal with.
Absorb.
And what's put in front of their minds. Is it true? Is it good? Is it honorable? Is it right? Are we putting those things in front of our minds? Are we putting those things in front of their minds? To help them be resilient for the things that will inevitably come. Because kids are going to say weird and dumb stuff.
Right.
Challenges will arise. Scary things will come.
Yeah.
But are we thinking on what's true and good in the midst of that? Mm-hmm. I think that's a fair question. And honestly, the challenge for all of us when we're dealing with things like anxiety. Well, as we close our time, I just want to say, for maybe from both of your perspectives, as we kind of move forward with this, because this isn't going away.
Right.
This isn't a reality that's going away. And yet we are committed to serving students and families and what we do here. How would you say families and schools, for us as Trinity, how can we partner together to help children work through this stuff in healthy ways? Because we don't want to be the saviors here.
Right.
We want to help families. We want to help bolster them. Obviously, church is a foundational piece of this as well. Right. But how, from your perspective, can Trinity and families continue to work together to help one another in this endeavor?
I love that question. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do. The first that I would say is label the things that are happening as they should be, right? So there's actually a really good book that I read that's Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett. And he talks about emotions and building emotional intelligence in children specifically. And one thing that's important for adults in their lives to really recognize is that feelings are a part of the school experience. They're a part of our everyday human experience. Feelings, emotions, they're going to be there, right? What's harder for kids as their brain is developing is for them to be able to actually recognize, understand, label, explain, and then regulate those feelings, right? So building emotional intelligence in our kids is number one, super important as parents. For faculty, staff at Trinity, what's important is that a fundamental truth is that everybody wants to be heard and understood.
True.
Right? And even if you don't understand some irrational thoughts or some intrusive thoughts that a student is having, they're still experiencing something that's hard. Mm-hmm. And so what we can do as faculty and staff is to be able to help a student build their own emotional intelligence. Tell me what you're feeling. Where is this impacting you? Is it a reasonable worry or an unreasonable worry? Right? We have our mentorship groups where in upper school we have our students that will come on Wednesdays and they have discipleship with our faculty, and allowing a student to just be able to express that they're going through a hard thing, right? And validating those feelings is really important. Okay. After that, it's in building that relationship where they feel comfortable and confident to talk to you about those feelings that you can then use your relationship capital, if you will, in order to help them bridge the problem that needs to be solved. Let's take a look at it. Is this something that is going to go away? Is it something that we do need to take a look at? Yeah. Right? Or is this something that you need to give to God? Is it something that you need to bring to parents? Is it something that you need to talk with a professional about and maybe seek some counseling on? Right? But being there for our students, allowing them to be vulnerable, allowing them to have big feelings and not feel shame for those feelings is really, really fundamentally important. Because yes, we can say, are those feelings logical? No, right? Is the outcome that they perceive that will happen likely? No, right? So our first impulse a lot of times as adults whose brains are fully cooked, are fully developed because we have gone through our development, is to say, hey, that's completely illogical, right? And that's not going to do any repair work for a student who's struggling with emotions. It's going to make them feel like, oh, this is not a safe place for me to unload these feelings if I'm told that what I'm feeling is disproportionate to the situation.
Right. And then they might
let them
unload it in a different way.
Exactly.
And this allows them a little bit of room to be able to do that in a safe and good way. Yeah. And can be used differently.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we can validate it. Yeah. That is really hard. Doing senior thesis is really hard. Right? Having to go up in fourth grade and present something when you're brand new to Trinity and you've never had to present things in front of people, that's going to be scary, right? And validating those feelings, letting them know that like we all experience that.
And it's okay.
And it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. That's really what kids need to hear from the adults in their lives. So really like what we can do is we can ask our kids, do you need advice? Right? Or do you need comfort? Right? And it's the same with our students. Are you seeking advice from me or are you seeking reassurance? Right? And so that can be a tool that we can use where if a kid just wants to vent, sometimes that's all it is. And sometimes getting it off their chest is very helpful. Right? And us as logical humans tend to jump into, well, how do we fix this?
Yes, that's
how do we
true.
Solve this?
Or give the suggestion as opposed to just ask listening. A couple more questions and listen.
Right. Yeah. So I would encourage adults to sit with their kids in it, sit with their students in it, offer prayer, like I know I've witnessed our faculty and staff doing every day, and let them know that it's going to come, that this is a safe place, somebody that they can talk to and they can be vulnerable with, and that you have the confidence that they can do hard things, which is, I know, our mantra here at Trinity is it's hard. The road is hard. Expectations are high, but we can do it together.
Yeah. And it's worth it.
And it is worth it.
Absolutely. So the last bit of advice that I would give would be directly to our students at Trinity. And this is something that I say to my students all the time who come and see me for educational therapy. Who we spend time with matters, right? If you have big feelings and you bring them to a friend and they make your feelings exponentially worse, that may not be a good friend that can help you through that difficult time, right? What we're looking for is what the Bible talks about is who we surround ourselves is who we are going to grow into being. When I'm struggling with something really tricky in my life, a problem that's unsolvable, that will maybe just take time. And I have to be patient. These are things that I will bring to someone in my life that is, I can trust with my big feelings, right? Because it's not a bad thing to have big feelings. What's important is that we're bringing our big feelings to the right location, to the right person to hear them. We want a friend who's going to hear it and is going to speak life into our problem, who is going to give us an alternate perception that maybe we didn't think about, right? A lot of times we can become tunnel vision focused on this is what this situation meant, especially in the social situations with students, right? So-and-so did this to me, and I know they did it on purpose, right? And so we get this.
I
know.
I can read their mind.
Right? And
true.
so this is a maladaptive perception that we have, right? Like this is our brain, almost like this is like Satan-infused distortion.
And your point with the speaking life part, especially for our students, and it might mean like a different perspective, or that they don't agree, or like, and that's okay too.
And
like,
that's okay.
I just need to process this a little more, and it's okay.
Right. Exactly. So when we're looking for validation and reassurance, right, we want to make sure that the reassurance that we're getting is good and true and beautiful also.
Yeah.
If you're bringing your problems to somebody and they're saying, oh yeah, they totally did that to you on purpose, right? That may be somebody who is allowing for a deceiving thought to grow and to flourish in an environment where it shouldn't, right? And maybe we need to go to the friend that says like, or they could have just had a really rough day. Yeah. Maybe they're tired. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with you whatsoever, right? And so we can reinterpret that situation in a different way that helps shift our focus from a very negative trajectory into a more gracious, positive trajectory. It doesn't always work, but there's still going to be things. Yeah. There's still going to be things. Yeah. I agree. Things are hard, and we don't always know. I have students that ask me like, but can you prove that other perspective is true? I said, no, but you know what? I would rather think better of somebody. And then I tell my students this story. My husband knows that I am a very anxious driver, and I get angry when other people on the road are not following the rules as they are intended.
They're doing it against you.
They're doing it to me
specifically. They know that Kelly's on the road.
And they cut me off specifically to make me mad.
Yeah. Or just because they don't like you.
And they don't
like you. They know you. They've researched you.
Yep. Maybe they don't like my swagger wagon.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. But they have done this to me. I get enraged in traffic. Okay. And my husband says to me, he's a very calm, low-key human. Yes. And he says, maybe they just need to get off on the next exit because they need to use the restroom.
Yeah.
And I go,
maybe they didn't plan.
Oh, maybe they didn't plan. Yeah. Yes.
And that would be me, Mrs. Bond, when I cut you off, because I don't need to be using the
But hopefully you didn't hit her.
Right. It was just, that would be
yes. Yeah. But it's better for my soul to accept that reality that, okay, maybe they are going through something. Maybe they do need to get off or you know what?
Of something you just don't know.
I don't know.
You just don't know.
I don't know.
And you won't know.
And I won't.
And sometimes it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No, I know.
But this is how we can kind of trick our anxious brain into accepting an alternate reality, right?
Yeah, but when you're talking about thinking on things that are good and true, when we talk about those biblical principles, I think what's fascinating is consider the source.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes, like you said, sometimes it's something where if you want to know what they were actually thinking and feeling, maybe go ask them. Sometimes you have that opportunity, but we don't want to. Or again, it's easier to just assume.
That creates anxiety too.
For all of it.
Which do you want to sit in?
But on top of that, I think the other thing you're saying, especially to our students, and it's a very fair and necessary comment, is probably another 14 or 15-year-old isn't the ultimate source of truth and goodness in this context. Right. Maybe find someone older than you. Find someone who's walked through this. Go to a parent, go to a teacher, go to a pastor, go to someone outside of this that could give you some wisdom and perspective. Look at God's word, right? There are so many other great sources of truth and goodness outside of just your peers. There's probably other good sources of truth and context, perspective that you could go to rather than just believing, or again, just consider the source of where some of these things are coming and maybe find a better avenue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I actually got really good advice from Dr. Dixon a few years ago when I brought something.
It happens once a year. So
it happens a lot.
She found it.
There's little nuggets of Dr. Dixon that are wedged into my brain that I call on frequently. And one of the nuggets of wisdom that he shared with me was, when I have a dispute with a friend, a coworker, a parent, the important thing is to not let it fester, right? A lot of times we want to avoid confrontation. We don't want to have the hard conversation because what if it blows up in our face? What if we do it wrong because we're so emotionally elevated?
Well, and you're going down that path of all the things that are
could go wrong.
Are not likely.
Ifs that torture our brains, right? And so one thing that he told me was, if I'm still thinking about the interaction a week later, right? If it's still with me, I need to reach out to that person and reconnect. I need to ask more questions. I need to say, hey, that situation didn't sit well with me. Let's talk about it, because I want to understand from your point of view how it felt for you,
right? And
how we can find some resolution. Yeah. Right?
Well, and it comes back to the seeking understanding.
Absolutely.
And we're usually are a little off in what we originally thought. Like, it really does come back to the principle of face-to-face, having conversation. Right. And you don't go alone. I mean, the Lord goes with you. And
absolutely,
if you ask him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And to be fair, to give credit where credit's due, I think I was probably just regurgitating this lady right here. Because, and generally it is, when we talk about anxiety and we talk about those things, the relational anxiety, it's why I'm thankful that peacemaking is a hallmark of our school. It is built into the fabric and culture, DNA, however you want to say it, of our school. And it's because she not only speaks of it, but perpetuates it and lives it,
right?
In that sense. Because I can always count on, even times, believe it or not, she and I have to have hard conversations. I'll get a text like an hour later, like, did I say, is it okay? I'm like, we're good. Like, but she's, what I'm always grateful for is, I know she does this with our faculty, staff, parents alike, is not letting those things sit and fester, not letting that foster, because as we often say too, Satan's always looking for a foothold, a way to divide us. And anxiety is one of those ways, but for another day, peacemaking is another one we can talk about, but of ways to really, really distract us from the mission and calling that we have here as Trinity, but also the mission and calling that we have as parents in raising up children to know him, to love him, and to live for him.
And to trust him.
Satan derives joy from pulling any of us off course in those that mission and what we're trying to do, because it's good work that honors Christ.
Absolutely.
And I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very good. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Different by Design. To learn more about Trinity Classical Academy, visit us at trinityclassicalacademy.com. And for more information about our approach to classical Christian education, be sure to check out the conversations over at the Classical Academy podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and share. Until next time.